The sun was up, but the girl didn't feel its warmth. Her bare feet touched the rough, hot pavement as she wandered around the busy street. Her eyes tired, her lips dry. She had not eaten since the day before, not even water. Her stomach had stopped growling. It had given up. She didn't know her name. She didn't know where she came from. She didn't know if anyone in the world cared if she lived or died. All she knew was the street, its smell, its noise, its hunger. She was just a little girl when she found herself in the middle of the road one morning. No one claimed her. No one called her name. People passed by. Some looked at her. Most ignored her. She waited, hoping someone would come, but no one ever did. Now she was a teenager, still alone, still waiting. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her hair was rough and dusty. She had grown used to sleeping on cardboard near her shop's veranda. Her favorite spot was close to a bakery, at least when they threw away old bread she could eat. But on days like today, when nothing came her way, she would just walk and walk, hoping to find something, anything. She saw a little boy holding his mother's hand. The boy looked well fed and happy. He held a meat pie in the other hand. The smell made her weak. As they passed by, her eyes followed the pie like a hungry dog. She didn't beg this time. The last person she begged slapped her and called her a thief. Sometimes she stole. Yes, she didn't like it. But when hunger made her chest ache, when her legs could no longer carry her, she had to do something. She had been caught before, beaten, insulted, pushed to the ground. But the hunger always came back, and still, she didn't stop walking. Each step she took carried a story of pain. Her eyes, though young, looked old, like they had seen too much for someone her age. She watched the world move while she remained stuck, a ghost in plain sight, a forgotten soul. Still deep inside her, a tiny voice whispered, maybe one day someone will see me. Maybe. She sat by the roadside, her arms wrapped around her knees, trying to stay warm. Cars drove by, splashing muddy water her way. No one stopped. No one cared. Across the road, she saw them again. The girls. They were about her age, maybe younger. Their hair was neat, their skin fresh and glowing. They wore clean school uniforms, and their bags looked expensive. One of them laughed loudly, holding a pink ice cream cone. Another had a phone in her hand, snapping pictures of her friend as they posed beside a car. The girl on the street didn't hate them. She admired them. She wanted to be one of them. She imagined herself in a uniform like theirs, maybe white and blue, carrying a pink backpack with ribbons tied to the zips. She imagined going home to a house, sitting at a dining table and hearing someone say, come and eat, darling. But all she had was a torn dress and an empty stomach. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't even try to stop them. It was not the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. The tears came whenever she saw what she would probably never have. She had no name, no family, no memory of love. All she had was wishful thinking. She stood up and walked away before the rich girls could see her crying. She didn't want pity. She didn't want them to throw her a leftover meal or a bottle of half finished water like some had done before. Number. She didn't want to be reminded that she was different. Less. She turned into an alley and sat beside a pile of old wood. It was her favorite thinking corner. She looked up to the sky and whispered the same prayer she always said. If there's someone out there, anyone, please just come and find me. She didn't expect an answer, but she still prayed. The morning came with smoke and the smell of akara frying in the distance. Her stomach growled again, loud and painful. She got up from where she slept near a closed kiosk and stretched her sore back. Today, she would try to beg. She didn't want to steal again. The last time she tried stealing a roasted corn, the woman selling it beat her with a broom and poured dirty water on her. She walked to the busy market road and picked a spot near a traffic light. It was a good begging spot. Cars stopped there for a few seconds, just enough time to ask for help. She rubbed her stomach and walked to the first car as it stopped. Please, anything for food, she said softly to the driver. The man wound up his glass without looking at her. She moved to the next car. A woman was on the phone. She ignored her too. Another car? She knocked gently. The young man inside gave her a sharp glare. Go and work, lazy girl. You want to eat free food, Abby? He shouted before driving off. Her heart sank, but she kept trying. Then finally, an older woman rolled down her window and dropped a 50 naira note. It was small, but to her, it was like gold. She whispered, God bless you, Ma, with a trembling voice. As she turned to walk away, she felt a sudden tug. A woman had caught her by the arm. Thief! She just took my bag! The woman screamed. The girl's eyes widened. No, I didn't! I swear I didn't! Before she could finish, people surrounded her. Slaps rained on her. A stick hit her back. Someone kicked her side. Small girl like you stealing in broad daylight? Useless thing. Witch. No, please. I didn't take anything, she cried, but they didn't stop. It took a kind man passing by to shout and chase them off. She's just a child. Leave her alone, he yelled. They scattered, and the crowd moved on like nothing happened. She lay on the floor, her dress torn, lips bleeding, her hands shaking. The 50 naira note was gone. She got up slowly and limped back to her corner. She didn't cry this time. The tears refused to come. Maybe she was getting used to it. Maybe. That afternoon, she found her usual spot, behind the big public school near the market. It wasn't a fancy school, but it had real classrooms, real teachers, and students with uniforms. The back window of one of the classrooms was always left half open, probably because it had no glass. That was where she learned. Every day she would hide behind the dusty flower bed outside the window and listen. She didn't care about the heat or the mosquitoes. She would crouch quietly, her ears sharp, her eyes peeking through the corner of the window. Inside the class, a teacher was writing on the board. 2 plus 2 equals, he said. 4, the children shouted. She smiled. She knew that one. When they learned new words, she repeated them in her mind. She watched how the teacher pronounced things. She paid attention to every instruction. Even though she had no pencil, no book, and no desk, she still learned. Sometimes, when the bell rang and the children came outside to play, she would quickly hide behind a tree. A few of them had seen her before. Some called her names like Dirty Girl or Bush Rat. Others just stared. She didn't care. She kept coming every day. One day, the teacher almost caught her. He heard a small cough from the window and walked toward it. She ran before he could see her face. Her heart beat fast as she hid behind the wall of the next compound. But still, she smiled. That day, they had taught multiplication, and she got all the answers right in her head. She may not have a home, she may not have a name, but her mind was still alive, still growing, and learning gave her a strange kind of hope. It was a Saturday morning, and the street was unusually quiet. She walked aimlessly, with her hands tucked under her armpits and her belly aching with hunger. There was no leftover food in the dustbins today. The shops hadn't thrown anything out, and the bakery gate was locked. She kept walking. Then suddenly her eyes caught something bright, something shiny. She looked up. In front of her was a boutique like no other she had ever seen. It was tall, wide, and clean. The glass windows sparkled in the sunlight, and inside were mannequins dressed in colorful, expensive clothes. The kind of clothes she had only seen in magazines left in garbage piles. She stood there, frozen, her mouth slightly open. The dresses inside were like magic. Long gowns with shiny beads, short flare skirts with matching tops, and shoes that looked like they belonged to princesses. One mannequin wore a red gown that glittered like fire. Another wore a white one with feathers that floated like clouds. She pressed her nose against the glass, leaving a dusty print behind. She imagined herself in those clothes. She imagined stepping into a car with tinted glass, walking on red carpets, and being called pretty girl instead of dirty street rat. For a few minutes, she forgot she was hungry. She forgot she had nowhere to go. She forgot she was just a nameless girl on the street. Then she saw her reflection in the glass: dusty skin, chapped lips, ragged dress. Her joy melted. She looked down and slowly turned to leave, but it was too late. The boutique owner had seen her. From inside, a woman wearing a stylish jumpsuit and high heels stood with her arms folded. Her brows narrowed, watching the girl with curiosity and something else, disgust maybe. The poor girl panicked. Her heart raced. She turned and tried to run, but someone blocked her path. Madame say make you come, the boutique assistant said sharply. She shook her head. Please, I didn't do anything. But the assistant was firm. Follow me, now. The boutique door opened with a soft ding, and the cold air from inside brushed against her hot, dusty skin. She had never been in a place like this before. Everything inside shone: glass counters, golden hangers, soft music playing in the background. She felt like she had stepped into a dream, but the dream was not sweet. She was standing in front of the owner now, a tall, fine woman with smooth caramel skin and straight black hair. Her makeup was perfect. Her nails were long and painted red. She looked like one of the glamorous women on billboards. The woman looked her up and down slowly, from her bare feet to her torn clothes. The girl dropped her eyes in shame. What were you doing at my window? The woman asked, her voice calm but cold. I I was just looking, the girl stammered. Looking? The woman raised a brow. Why? The girl looked up, her eyes wet. Because the clothes are beautiful. I only wanted to see them. I didn't mean any harm. The woman stared at her in silence. Then she did something unexpected. She sighed and said, sit down. The girl hesitated. I said, sit, the woman repeated, pointing to a white leather chair near the counter. The girl slowly sat, unsure of what was happening. The boutique assistant brought a plate of rice and meat. Her eyes widened. For me? She whispered. The woman nodded without a word. The girl grabbed the spoon and began to eat. She didn't chew slowly. She didn't look up. Her mouth moved like a machine, stuffing the food in before someone could change their mind. The woman watched her quietly. The sight disgusted her, but she didn't show it. Something about the girl's hunger reminded her of something or someone. When the girl finished, she dropped the spoon, licked her fingers, and wiped her tears. Thank you, Ma, she said, her voice breaking. The woman turned to her assistant. Take her to the private bathroom. Let her bathe. Then let her pick any dress of her choice. The girl's eyes widened again. Me? Pick a dress? Yes, the woman replied, already walking away. But why? The woman didn't answer. She simply said, clean her up first. I don't want her smelling up the place. The bathroom was the cleanest place she had ever seen. White tiles sparkled under her feet, and the scent of rose soap filled the air. There was warm water, a soft towel, and bottles of shampoo lined up like perfume soldiers. She stood still for a moment, afraid to touch anything. The boutique assistant rolled her eyes. Oh, yeah? Bathe? Or you want me to do it for you? The girl quickly undressed and stepped into the shower. The warm water touched her back, and she let out a sound, half a sob, half a laugh. She scrubbed her body again and again as if she was trying to wash away all the years of pain. When she came out, the assistant handed her a comb and a clean white slip to wear temporarily. Now, come and choose cloth, the assistant said, dragging her by the hand into the main boutique. The girl's eyes danced around the room. Dresses of every color hung like stars in the sky, blue, gold, pink, glittering with lace and stone. She couldn't believe it. Pick one, the assistant said, arms folded. She stared in shock. Her heart beat fast. She walked slowly between the rows of gowns, touching them gently like they were made of glass. Then she stopped in front of a purple gown. It had beads on the sleeves and a soft, fluffy bottom. I want this one, she said quietly, her voice shaking. The assistant looked her up and down. You sure? This one expensive. Oh, the girl nodded. Fine. Come, she said. They went into the changing room. She put on the dress, and the moment she looked at herself in the mirror, she gasped. She didn't recognize herself. The girl in the mirror had glowing skin, neat hair, and a gown that looked like something out of a fairy tale. She smiled, but before she could step out, something strange happened. Her legs froze, her arms stiffened, her mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. She looked at her hands. They were stuck. She looked at her reflection, still smiling, but no longer moving. She was no longer a girl. She had become a mannequin. The showroom lights were dim now. Outside, the sky had turned orange as the sun began to set. Inside, she stood, still, frozen, silent. The purple gown shimmered on her body, but she could not move, not even an inch. Her eyes were wide, but she couldn't blink. Her mouth stayed slightly open, but no words came out. No cries, no breath. She was a mannequin now, just like the other standing beside her, but inside her mind, she was still alive. What is happening to me? She screamed in her head. I was just wearing a dress. Please, someone help me. She watched as the boutique assistant walked past her, not knowing that the girl she had taken to the changing room was now one of the dolls in the glass. Customers came in. They admired the dress on her. Some pointed at her face, saying, This mannequin looks so real. A child even waved at her and laughed, but she couldn't respond. She couldn't blink. She was screaming inside, but no one heard. Hours passed. Night came. The boutique closed. Darkness filled the room, but the spotlight stayed on the mannequins. Then she heard it. A voice. No, voices. In her head. We have a new one. Another one trapped. She looks young. What's her story? Her heart jumped. Who's talking? Then she heard it again. Clearer now. We're like you, another voice said gently. We were once girls. Now we are mannequins too. Her mind spun. What? No, this can't be true. Then another voice spoke, older, calmer. You're not alone anymore, child. We've been waiting for someone new. The poor girl stood still in fear and confusion, but her mind was wide awake, and she could now hear the mannequins speaking to one another. The showroom was quiet, but inside the girl's mind it was not. The other mannequins spoke softly, mind to mind, like whispers floating in the air. They welcomed her. What's your name? One asked. She wanted to answer, but she didn't know. She had never been given a name. I don't know my name, she replied sadly in her thoughts. Another mannequin, with a soft voice like a big sister, spoke next. That's okay. Many of us have forgotten our names too. How did this happen? The girl asked. There was silence. Then one of the mannequins, an older voice with pain wrapped around every word, began to speak. I was just like you. I was hungry walking the streets. The boutique owner brought me in, gave me food, let me choose a dress. I thought it was kindness, but it was a trap. The girl's heart sank. Me too, another mannequin added. She told me I looked beautiful in red. I smiled. I entered the changing room. Then, nothing. I became this. The girl listened, frozen in her pose, her mind racing. She realized the mannequins weren't just decoration. They were all once girls. Poor girls. Street girls. Girls with no one. Just like her. Every night they talked. They told stories of who they were before. One said she once wanted to be a nurse. Another said she used to sing on the street for money. They couldn't cry with their eyes anymore, but inside, their hearts wept. But the new girl, the latest mannequin, she wasn't ready to give up. Every night after the stories were told, she did something different. She prayed, not with her lips, but in her mind. God, if you're real, if you can't hear me, save me, please. Don't leave me like this. The other mannequins listened. Some joined her, others simply whispered, no one ever escapes. But the new girl prayed harder each night, and every night her faith grew louder than her fear. 3 months passed. The boutique remained the same. Customers came in, admired the mannequins, bought dresses, and left. The boutique owner, Madame Vero, carried on with her usual pride and poise. She never handled the mannequins herself. That was always left to her assistant. But one hot afternoon, she did something unusual. She entered the showroom alone. She walked to the glass and frowned. One of the dresses on display had caught her eye. The purple gown. Hmm, that piece hasn't sold yet, she muttered. She stepped closer to the mannequin in the purple dress, the newest one. The girl. Madame Vero tilted her head slightly. Something was odd. The mannequin looked too perfect, too lifelike. She reached out and touched the neck. Smooth, still warm. Madame Vero's fingers paused. Impossible? She thought. She leaned in and adjusted the hair on the mannequin's left side, and that was when she saw it. A small, almost invisible mark behind the ear, an inscription, not written with ink, but almost like it was born there. Adana. Madame Vero stumbled backward. Her eyes widened. No, it can't be, she whispered. That name. That name was from her past, a ghost she had buried long ago. Her hands began to shake. Her chest rose and fell quickly. She stared at the mannequin again, trying to calm her thoughts, but the name was still there. Edana. It was a name she once knew, a name that once meant something to her, a name that brought back pain, and now it had appeared on the mannequin in her boutique. Madame Vero stood trembling, her heart pounding. She had never broken her own rule of touching the mannequins, but this one was different. That name, Adana, had shaken her soul. She called her assistant sharply. Take this one to the back room. Now don't ask questions. The assistant obeyed without a word, though her brows rose in silent curiosity. Together, they carried the mannequin through a locked door at the back of the boutique, one that no customer, staff, or outsider was allowed to enter. It was a dim room with red velvet curtains, a polished wooden floor, and a large mirror on the wall. Madame Vero dismissed her assistant. Leave us. Once alone, she sat across from the mannequin and just stared at it. Her breathing became heavy. Her hands shook. The mannequin stood stiffly, still trapped in the purple dress, but inside, Adana was panicking. Where am I now? What is she doing? Why did she bring me here? Suddenly, the woman broke down and began to weep. Adana, oh my God, it's really you. Adana's mind stopped. What? I wrote that name behind your ear when you were a baby, Madame Vero cried. You were mine. I breastfed you for 4 months. And then she broke into bitter sobs, her voice soaked in regret. I was broke. I had nothing. I gave you away to a rich family. I thought you'd live a better life. She pulled out an old photograph from a hidden drawer. A baby wrapped in pink. That was you. I never stopped thinking of you. Adana listened, stunned. But years later, I heard that the family had an accident. No survivors. I thought, I thought you died, my only child. She stood slowly and placed her palm on the mannequin's face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was you. The mannequin remained still, frozen. But in her mind, Adana was screaming. So, all this time, the woman who turned me into a mannequin was my own mother? The truth was too heavy to hold. And inside her stiff plastic body, a tear slipped down her soul. Madame Vero couldn't stop crying. Her face was soaked with tears, her hands trembling as she touched the mannequin's shoulder. I did all this for money, for fame, she whispered bitterly. After I thought I lost you, my life became meaningless. I tried to move on. I opened this boutique, but nothing worked. Until she turned and looked at the large mirror on the wall. That mirror, it was given to me by a strange woman who claimed she could help me attract more customers. But there was a price. She said if I wanted riches, I would need to beautify my mannequins with living sorrow. I didn't understand at first. She began to pace the room, her voice shaky. But one day, I picked up a homeless girl. I gave her food, kindness, and led her to this room. She dressed up, looked into the mirror, and the moment she did, she became like you, frozen, trapped. She paused, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked older now. Guilt had aged her. I was scared at first, but then customers started coming. They loved the display. They said the mannequins were so lifelike. Business soared. I was finally rich, and I kept going. I kept doing it. Adana, listening from inside her frozen shell, couldn't believe what she was hearing. So many girls, just like me, turned into objects for profit. But today, Madame Vero continued, her voice breaking, God has punished me. I turned my own daughter into one of them. My blood, my baby. She dropped to her knees. I'm sorry, Adana. Please forgive me. I didn't know. Suddenly, a knock came at the door. Then another. Voices. People had heard everything, customers, assistants, strangers, and some were recording. The door creaked open and flashlights from phones filled the room. Madame Vero turned around slowly, tears still falling, as the truth she'd hidden for so long finally spilled into the light. The room filled up quickly. Curious customers who had followed the voices now stood frozen, phones raised, recording everything. Some assistants looked stunned, whispering among themselves. Others covered their mouths in shock. Madame Vero didn't try to hide anymore. She stood before the mirror, hands trembling, facing everyone. You all had it, she said softly, voice cracked with guilt. I used this mirror, this cursed thing, to turn innocent girls into mannequins. Gasps echoed around the room. This one, she pointed to the mannequin in the purple dress. This one is my daughter. Adana, the assistant who had helped carry the mannequin, dropped to her knees crying. This is wickedness, a customer shouted. How do you live with yourself? Another asked. But Vero raised a weak hand. There's a way to reverse it. Everyone quieted down. She pointed to the mirror again. This mirror changes girls into mannequins when they dress up and face it in this room. But the same mirror can return them to human form. She quickly called for her assistants. Bring them all, every mannequin from the showroom, one by one. The boutique turned into chaos as shocked customers watched the truth unfold live on social media. Hashtags were already trending. But now Mannequin Girls, Madame Vero exposed, mirror of shame. In minutes, mannequin after mannequin was carried into the room and placed before the mirror. It was like magic. Each one blinked, gasped, and collapsed to the floor in disbelief. Some cried, some screamed, others hugged each other and thanked God for saving them. Then came Adana. She was placed gently in front of the mirror. Everyone watched. Her eyes blinked. She gasped and fell to her knees. The crowd clapped and wept. Phones shook in people's hands as they captured the moment. But Adana didn't move right away. She just sat there, frozen, not in her body but in her soul. She turned slowly to Madame Vero and said the words that silenced the entire room. "You're my mother?" The room was silent. Adana's voice echoed like thunder despite how softly she had spoken. "You're my mother?" Madame Vero's knees buckled beneath her. She knelt on the floor and nodded slowly, tears falling freely. "Yes, yes, my child. I'm your mother. I never meant for this to happen. I thought you were dead." Adana just stared at her, confused, hurt, angry, and broken. The freed girls gathered around her, some still shaking, some whispering prayers. They stared at the mirror with fear, remembering how it had stolen their freedom, their time, their lives. Adana looked away from Madame Vero and stared at her reflection. She reached up and touched behind the ear. The mark was still there. Adana, suddenly, memories started flashing in her mind. A car, a loud crash, screams, fire. She held her head tightly. Then, two warm arms around her, a woman's soft voice calling her, "Boluwatif." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I, I remember, she whispered. The memories began to form clearer images. A happy couple, her birthday cake, a man with kind eyes, a woman with the gentlest hands. They were the ones who raised her, my adopted parents, she muttered. They loved me. Her hands trembled. But the accident, they they died. She broke down in tears again. Everyone in the room listened with heavy hearts. They had all been victims, but Adana's pain was deeper. She had lost twice, first her biological mother, then her adopted family. One of the girls touched her shoulder gently. "You're out now. You're alive. That's what matters." Madame Vero tried to speak. "Adana, Boluwatif, I'll do anything to make it right." But Adana turned away, whispering, "You already did enough." And just then, police officers entered the room. "Madam Veronica Okonkwo," one officer announced loudly, "you are under arrest for human trafficking, kidnapping, and ritual abuse." The crowd parted. Some clapped, some shook their heads. The moment of truth had come. Madame Vero was handcuffed and led away, her head bowed, tears of regret following her every step. As the police led Madame Vero out of the boutique, a crowd had already gathered outside. Neighbors, reporters, bloggers, and angry strangers who had seen the viral videos online. Phones flashed like lightning. People shouted, "She should rot in jail." Wickedness in high heels. Imagine turning your own daughter into a mannequin. Madame Vero said nothing. Her eyes were swollen, her lips trembling. For the first time in years, a boutique, the very thing she had sacrificed souls to build, was silent. Inside, the rescued girls huddled together, some receiving water, others just staring into space, still trying to process the freedom they had gained. Adana sat on a stool, quietly watching everything unfold. She still couldn't bring herself to cry. Her heart felt numb. A soft voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Boluwatif?" She turned sharply. A middle-aged woman and a teenage boy stood at the door with a police officer. The woman's face lit up with recognition. "I'm your aunt, your adopted mother's younger sister." Adana's mouth opened slightly, surprised. "Auntie, Jumoke?" The woman nodded, crying. "We've been looking for you for 10 years. When the accident happened, we thought you died, but I never gave up. When I saw your story on Facebook this morning, I flew down immediately. She pulled Adana into a warm embrace, and for the first time in days, Adana cried big, heavy tears, tears of pain, tears of relief, tears of finally being found. The boutique was sealed by the police. Investigations continued, and within days, Madame Vero was tried in court with undeniable evidence, confessions, video recordings, and testimonies. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The judge called her actions a disgrace to motherhood and a betrayal to humanity. She left the courtroom in silence, her head bowed, the name Adana echoing in her mind like a ghost that would never leave her. Months had passed since the mirror was shattered and Madame Vero was sent to prison. The once famous boutique was now permanently closed, its windows boarded up, its name forgotten by customers and cursed by the internet. But across town, a quiet new life had begun to blossom. Adana, now proudly going by Boluwatif, was living with her aunt, Auntie Jumoke, and her cousin, Dimeji. Their home was small but filled with warmth, love, and laughter. No more cold floors, no more leftover food from dustbins, no more watching life from behind a glass window. She was enrolled in a private adult school, determined to chase her dreams. Her love for learning had never died, even when she used to hide outside classroom windows, hoping to catch a few words from the teacher. The rescued girls had also been helped by the government and non-profit organizations. Some were reunited with families, others were placed in support homes. A few stayed in touch with Boluwatife, forming a close bond they now called the Sisterhood of Survivors. One sunny afternoon, Boluwatif sat outside, holding a photo album her aunt gave her. Inside were pictures of her adoptive parents, her real angels. She smiled. I remember now, she whispered. Thank you for loving me, even for the short time we had. The wind blew gently, and in her heart she felt peace. She stood up and walked toward the little mirror hanging in the hallway. She looked at her reflection. No longer the hungry girl in rags, no longer a mannequin, no longer invisible. Now she saw strength, she saw survival, she saw hope, she saw Boluwatif, a girl whom God truly blessed despite the pain. And with a soft smile, she whispered to herself, this is just the beginning.